So we're here with Sasha, the creator of this new Nilu hypercar. It's not often that a new hypercar comes out, and it's definitely not often where it's this cool and this kind of emotion and passion driven. So can you tell me a little bit about the car? I know it has a V12, I know it's a manual, but you're obviously the creator.
Yeah, thank you very much for telling the story of this project. I guess I'm a kind of a old school car guy, and I felt that with modern cars there was too many layers in between the driver and the road, right? So if you just break down the amount of things that happen between your inputs and what the car is actually doing, it was getting more and more complex. The technology is getting more refined. Maybe you're getting more comfort out of it. You're definitely getting more speed out of it, but you are getting much less engagement.
Completely agree.
Right? So it's the engagement part that really motivated me to create this vehicle here. And outside of the engagement part, for me, another very important component is the holy shit factor. Like I think a real sports car needs to have this explosion in your brain, right? That's what I feel when I see all my childhood heroes, and I hope that the cars that I work on, both in the past and in the future, maybe will be someone else's childhood hero car. So that's the idea. The holy shit factor is very important. Having said that, I'm a very pragmatic and a very logical guy. So for me, design, and I'm a designer by trade and by training, design is all about form following function. That is fundamental. There shouldn't be anything on the car that is there for the sake of aesthetics or for the sake of just a fancy line or whatever, fancy detail. Everything needs to serve a purpose. So that on the exterior, it dictates the dimensions of the cabin, some of the cross sections of the car, some of the cooling arrangements that we've used. But the same approach to form following function takes us into a completely different visual direction on the interior, because there's no airflow on the interior. So you're not trying to streamline for airflow. You're actually designing for the ergonomics of the human body. And the shape of the human body is what dictates where the placement of where the placement of toggle switches, buttons, viewing angles, safety, impact zones, all of that is dictated from the human body. So the approach to beauty on the exterior becomes something totally different on the interior.
What's impressive to me is a lot of car companies will come out and have an impressive exterior, but I'm not sure why almost everyone fails at making an insane interior. Obviously it's very difficult, that's why, but you've done an incredible job of creating something radically different than anything I've ever seen. And there's been, this is the world of hypercars right now. There's a lot of different companies.
I think there's two keys that lead to the success. First is this form follows function mentality, where we don't have any cladding, any fake panels. Everything you see here is structural. Everything you see here is, there's no design or styling on top of function. Function is exposed. That is already the first key step. Second key step, and I have to give credit to a good friend of mine, Etienne Salome. I was heading up exteriors at Bugatti when he was heading up interiors at Bugatti. So we are the Bugatti Chiron team in a way, and he helped me a lot on the interior. He's got tons of interior expertise. The briefing was from me, the idea of what we were going to do from me, and then he was the one who found the right sort of formal expression of that idea.
So for those who don't know, you also designed the Gemera, the CC850.
I was at Koenigsegg responsible for both of those designs.
And then the Huracan?
Huracan exterior was my first production exterior work.
That is one heck of a first project.
Yeah, it's pretty fortunate.
I've had a couple Huracans, and that was like my poster car. So
awesome.
You did an incredible job.
Thank you very much.
Can we take a look at some of the complexities of the gated manual?
So everything in the car follows function, right? That's really the overriding statement here. And if you look at the size of that steering wheel, it's actually pretty small. It's 315 millimeters, which is basically a Formula One steering wheel from the 90s. The idea with that is that, first of all, by having a shorter lever, you get a lot more feedback. Right?
Yeah,
you get
absolutely.
You get more control over the car. But also, by having it smaller, we don't have to make it flat on the bottom. So when the car steps out and you want to catch a drift or power slide,
that's a very good point.
Then you can spin it easily without having a cut-off bottom. If we made a bigger wheel, you wouldn't be able to get in and out of the car as easily anymore without cutting the bottom off.
Sure. Is there a reason other than aesthetics for the kind of cylindrical shifter? Obviously, most are rounded on the top, so it's a unique shape.
I enjoy holding that.
Very
that
cool.
Feels right to me.
No, it looks awesome.
And I do like the aesthetics of sequential shifters as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which are lined up with a wheel center. I think it's pretty cool to be shifting along the same line as you're steering. So that's what we try to create here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We're about to talk to the man behind the engine, and genuinely, this is very impressive.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you. We're here with Nelson, who's responsible for this glorious V12 engine, which you can see basically all of it. So talk me through both the design, this being so open, and also some of the specs.
So, I mean, I think the coolest thing about it is that it's open and exposed. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
We've worked, like within my personal life and my company, we've worked with race cars forever, and my favourite thing about them is getting them back to the workshop on stands and admiring the engineering. Sometimes it's not always that artistic, but being able to see that.
Yeah.
Cool. And also from my own ego, we're doing the engine, I want everyone to see
100%.
it. But it's a beautiful car too. So it's not an OEM based engine, it's our own engine from scratch.
Oh wow.
So it's not based on anything, it's just the years of experience we've got designing engines for people, modifying engines.
And it's a 6.5 liter NA V12?
6.5 litre V12, yep. Naturally aspirated, massive bore size, short stroke. Within practicality, like we could go bigger in the bore and shorter in the stroke, but there'd be a trade-off for drivability and performance at some point.
And then horsepower and torque?
Lots. Like, so we're sort of talking the 1,070 horsepower.
Wow.
At this stage, 11,000 RPM, but we'll see. Like, I would like to get the car on the road and then decide exactly what's safe. Like, I know what we've achieved with our other V12s RPM-wise. And it's a case of where the power curve is as well. It's not just horsepower numbers only tell you part of the story.
Yeah.
And they really only tell you half the story, because the area under the curve, how drivable it is, actually defines how fast the car goes far more than a power figure. It's extremely deceiving, a power number.
Really?
Which is why, as an engineer, I always feel uncomfortable talking about power numbers.
Fair enough.
They don't actually say much about it, but it's what everyone wants to know. How much power you got, and how high does it rev?
Now, is this a Inconel exhaust coating, or what is
that's a ceramic coating on the exhaust,
gotcha.
Which it doesn't necessarily need, but it looks cool.
It looks very cool.
It's a 100% 3D printed exhaust system.
Really?
So we actually started off trying to design it in a way that we could fabricate it, but we've tried to embrace additive manufacturing in all our engines as much as we can, where it's practical. And 3D printing actually made sense. It's probably, I don't know, but I think it's probably the largest 3D printed exhaust manifold.
It's pretty insane.
Manifold on a...
And design-wise, it doesn't look like it could maybe be created any other way.
No, it was a challenge to get it, A, everything to line up.
Yeah. B,
to get, so that the best thing, like being able to do it all in CAD as opposed to hand fabricating something.
Sure.
Like every runner is within like 2 millimeters of length to each other. We have all the steps are in the same spot, all the sizes are perfect. And then the additive manufacturing, there's some concessions that need to be made in design, but there's also some flexibility. And it meant we could get the shape, get all the curves to like, because I've put a lot of effort into getting it to look right.
Yeah.
Now, it's a car that people are going to look at, so we have to make it look right.
And this is one of the lowest engines I've seen in a car. Was that huge? And
we took the same approach we do with a race car. Center of gravity as low as possible. The sump on it is as thin as we could possibly get it. Dry sump, because you've got to store the oil somewhere else. And that meant we could get it low, which meant quite a lot of, one of the hardest things was finding a clutch that could work in that smaller diameter but still have dampening and be drivable. Like a pure race clutch is really, really punishing to drive. They're either in or they're out. So that was actually a bit of a challenge, but overcoming that was one of the best things, because now we can get it super low, keep the centre of gravity down, helps with suspension angles as well, because you don't end up with extra subframes.
Incredible.
In too many places you don't need them. And yeah, it's just been a cool project.
Well, thank you so much. It's
no problem.
An incredibly impressive car, both exterior design and the powertrain.
Yeah, it's a lot of work to design an engine from scratch.
Of course.
But in some ways it's actually almost easier than modifying something.
Sure.
Because as long as you can design it and make it, because then you're not governed by what some OEM manufacturer where they put their casting.
It is really impressive, because we've got Pagani using AMG engines, and then we've got other manufacturers using Cosworth, and people have been developing engines for a long time. So to take that leap and create your own is really unbelievable.
It's something we've wanted to do for a while, and we've actually worked really hard to try and find a company to do it with. And there's been a lot of companies we've started down that track but just haven't gone anywhere. And when I saw this car, I was like, Sasha and I get along pretty well, so it was cool to be able to find the right project for it. So
awesome.
Here's hoping it just keeps working.
Thank you very much.
No problem, mate.